Imagine we were living in a village almost 3,000 years ago, and we woke up each day to a sight like this. As humans, we're almost compelled to try to understand and to explain things like the heavens above, but 3,000 years ago, our only tools for probing and exploring such things would have been our eyes, our minds, and that narrow set of beliefs and opinions, that little box within which our tribe could think. This famous little picture illustrates what's going on. Our tribe, our society, builds for itself a view of the world. This worldview becomes the frame in which we think. It's like a box of concept and culture within which we live. But there's always someone who starts to think outside the box, which raises the question, how do we discover new things? As a group, how do we agree to accept some new idea as being true? When confronted by something we don't understand, when the cause of some effect is utterly mysterious, how do we respond? Well, as natural storytellers, our reflex is to make up a myth. In paper 115, the Urantia Book puts it like this. If mind cannot fathom conclusions, if it cannot penetrate to true origins, then will such mind, unfailingly, postulate conclusions and invent origins, that it may have a means of logical thought within the frame of these mind-created postulates. This is not to criticize our systems of faith and belief, just to emphasize that as humans we are constrained to live and to dream within that framework of concept and belief that we and our society have been able to evolve. And as long as our myth remains consistent with our beliefs, or with the data we've been able to collect, we have a status quo. But a few hundred years ago, we discovered a way to step past such status quo. The scientific method. The true scientific method became a technique for evolving our own beliefs. It's helped us to learn something about the material world, even to glimpse the mechanisms of material life. But about ourselves, well, not so much. The phenomenon of man remains mysterious. In some ways, we're still in the same place as that poet in Palestine almost 3,000 years ago, whispering to his God, "What is man that you are mindful of him?" Even today, this remains a really good question. Why should the author of reality be interested in us? What's one more planet full of humans to the creator of an eternal infinity? This is precisely the question addressed by the Urantia Book. Now, at first glance, some may say, they're a bit long-winded, weren't they? 196 separate papers, over 2,000 pages of text. Others, like those of you who know personally the source of truth and love, may say, well, yes, but they've made some simple truths way too complex. Okay, but if this answer is to be appropriate for the skeptical scientific age ahead, if it is to be sufficient for scientists and philosophers, for mystics and religionists alike, think what was required. Before they could begin to explain our bodies and our minds, they had to adjust our basic assumptions about biology and psychology. Before they could begin to explain how worlds and stars and galaxies like ours evolve, they had to rework the foundations of our entire physics and cosmology. And before they could even begin to explain how we are salvaged from death, they had to reveal something of the extraordinary domain which bridges the material with the spiritual. And of course our beliefs, ideas, and experiences of this spiritual or numinous domain could do with some clarification. All this preliminary explaining and setting up implies a biggish book, and here it is, all 2 kilos, as first printed. So how do the authors of these papers answer that poet's simple question? What do they say is man? Why do they say might some God be mindful of us? Who are we? What are we doing here? What fresh ideas do these papers bring to the table? What revelations about ourselves do these revelators reveal? Here we face an issue. While personal revelation of truth and love unfolds within in ways too deep for words, a planetary or epochal revelation, as these papers claim to be, needs to be planted in a way that we can easily share. As words, as a set of those ideas whose time has come, as a framework of concept that can be grafted onto the paradigms our cultures have evolved. And this is what's being attempted here, to allow them to present appropriate answers to this simple, crucial question. The authors of these papers had to sketch out a cosmology, a universe frame big enough and consistent enough to contain the answers they are attempting to give. Which raises another question. What sort of answers are we, skeptical, scientific 21st century souls, willing or able to accept? What kind of answers does our scientific method even allow us to explore? Are telescopes our only means of contact? As a world, we anticipate contact with more than human life, but our scientific method has led many to believe that we are nothing but an evolutionary accident, that no display of energy nor expression of trust can carry us personally beyond the grave. You can see the problem. How on earth to deliver, to present a wider view of the world, a bigger frame, to a skeptical, scientific age?